Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Glad you folks are here with us tonight at the council chambers. And welcome to all of you all watching at home on our LouisvilleNC.net streaming on our webpage. Also on Facebook. And as I'm looking at Facebook right now, it looks like we're live. And I'm hoping we have sound. So welcome to your May meeting of the Louisville Town Council. We'll begin this evening with the invocation led by our attorney, Bo Houff, better also known as last month council member, and followed by a pledge of allegiance by Councilwoman Sandra Mock. If you're able, please stand and join us.
Let us pray. Dear God, we come to you recognizing tonight that you are our God. You made all that is, and you give us all that we have and all that we are. And so we come to you tonight giving you thanks for that. We give you thanks for this town now, Lord. We give you thanks for the citizens who make up this town, the staff that runs the operations of the town day to day. We thank you for this council who leads us. Grant them tonight wisdom and courage to do the things that need to be done here in the town. Be with all of those who are present physically with us tonight. Take them home safely tonight following the meeting. And again, we give you thanks for all that you are and all that you do. For it is in your name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And I also forgot to mention, George, are we also live on TV6? Everything is cooking tonight. Boy, this is exciting. We will have our customary introduction of council members through our roll call, starting on my right.
Hello, good evening. Welcome. This is Ed Smith.
Hello, my name is Sandra Mock.
I'm Mike Horn.
Robert Green.
Good evening, Marcy Gallman.
And I'm Fred Franklin.
Council member Zinger is absent this evening. He had a previous commitment. There you go. Ms. Walker, have there been any additions or changes other than the addition of the resignation of Gray King from the Louisville Public Safety Advisory Committee?
No, during your briefing, you discussed the contract that we have on here for Riverwood, so that's on here.
Our road contract, correct?
Yes.
Very good. All right, council members, any changes or additions? With that, we'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Mr. Smith makes the motion, Ms. Mock makes the second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, that's unanimous. Mr. Manager, you're up with our consent agenda.
This evening, consent agenda consists of Resolution 2019-039, acceptance and approval of monthly financials for March 2019, the approval of council briefing and action minutes from April 4th, 2019, the approval of council meeting minutes from April 11th, 2019, approval of council special meeting minutes from April 15th, 2019, the approval of council budget meeting minutes from April 15th, 2019, the approval of council special meeting minutes from April 22nd, 2019, and lastly, Resolution 2019-043, accepting the resignation of Gray King from the Louisville Public Safety Advisory Committee.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, the consent agenda are items that routinely come before the council. We take them as a group for expedience sake. Any council member can choose to ask any one of these items to be pulled off to be discussed individually, but generally we take them as a group. Council members, what's your pleasure?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Ms. Mock makes the motion, Mr. Franklin makes the second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, that's unanimous. Carol Owens from Preservation Forsyth, come on up. Great. Carol, come on up here. From time to time, it's our council's privilege to do a resolution honoring certain groups and in recognition of events and activities. Tonight, we're pleased to offer a resolution for council consideration, and this would be declaring May 2019 as Historic Preservation Month. Whereas the town of Louisville joins cities and counties across the United States in a nationwide celebration of Historic Preservation Month, and whereas historic preservation is an effective tool for economic development, tourism promotion, revitalizing neighborhoods, fostering local pride, and maintaining community character while enhancing livability. And whereas historic preservation is relevant for all communities across the nation, both urban and rural, and for all neighborhoods and citizens all over the town of Louisville, and whereas it is important to celebrate the role of history in our lives and the contributions made by dedicated individuals in helping preserve the tangible aspects of the heritage that has shaped us as a people, and whereas Historic Preservation Month is co-sponsored by the Forsyth County Historic Resources Commission, Preservation Forsyth, and other local preservation and neighboring organizations throughout Forsyth County. I'm down to the last two whereases. And whereas these organizations encourage members of the community to participate in creative and fun events related to historic preservation as a way to celebrate Preservation Month 2019. And whereas there are over 30 events scheduled in Forsyth County for citizens to attend, now therefore let be it resolved that the Mayor and Town Council in Louisville do hereby declare the month of May 2019 as Historic Preservation Month and call upon the people of Louisville to join their fellow citizens across the United States in recognizing and participating in this special observance. Be it further resolved that this resolution be spread upon the minutes of the town of Louisville. How do we spread a resolution? Do we just kind of enter it into the, okay. We doing something that I wasn't aware of. And that a copy be furnished to Forsyth County Historic Resources Commission, adopted this 9th day of May, 2019 by the Louisville Town Council. Council members, may I have a motion, please?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Mr. Smith makes a motion, Ms. Gallman makes the second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Well, that's passed unanimously. Carol, thank you for all that you do. We appreciate it. May I turn around here so the folks at home can see you, and you can wave to them, and hopefully your family's watching at home, because this is your chance to be on TV. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for all you do, Carol. We have another special guest with us this evening, Scott Ryan. We're with PART, the Piedmont Area Rapid Transit for regional transportation. Did I get it all in there?
Almost, but you were so close. PART was very good.
Okay. Good. Thank you. I get it. We'll spread that later. But Scott, welcome. Glad you're here tonight. You're here to share a little bit of information about PART. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you very much. And I know that you have other agenda items, so I will certainly go through. I have a few items I wanted to share with you with regards to who is PART. I've not been to your town council before. Love your town, I will say that.
That's a good start.
Yes, sir. Beautiful Main Street. And some other items that I will certainly share with you is why am I here. I have a few slides related to Business 40, which is why we have a new service that is tying into Clemens and Louisville on the western side of Forsyth County. And then a few items I'm going to leave you with that will really hopefully make you think about some other things in the future as you're dealing with all the things you have in your growth. But it's about mobility. It's about transportation. That's the business I'm in. But a lot of those decisions are certainly made at the grassroots level, at your own level, as far as what your future is. So as I go through the presentation, and I will certainly be as brief as I can, but if you have questions, please stop me, because when I talk about transportation, I just keep on talking, unless folks have some questions, say, well, what are you talking about on that piece? So please. First couple items about PART, Piedmont Authority for Regional Transportation. We were created by General Assembly in 1998. We are a unit of local government here in the state of North Carolina, unique in our own fashion as far as a unit of government dealing with transportation on a regional level. I have a board of 10 counties. I have a board of, my board is made up of 10 counties, 4 largest cities of the Triad, or 4 MPOs, 2 representatives of the airport, and 3 representatives of NCDOT. So my board is made up of 23 elected and appointed officials. I love coming to these meetings where I have a representation of 6 or 5 versus 23. It does not mean that there's certainly not a lot of good questions, but there's always a good conversation that goes on in our meetings from our different jurisdictions. The item that I'm here, one of the items that I wanted to give you an update on is with regards to Business 40, our Business 40 closure, which I know is impacting a great deal of the number of people. I was contacted in 2016 by our division engineer of Division 9, Pat Ivey, who talked about what are some things that we can think about with regards to our region as we go into our closure. A lot of this was referenced in what they were dealing with in the Triangle with the 4540 project and how they're dealing with different options of mobility. So we've kind of built upon that. And what we have basically done and what you have here is essentially what our regional system map is. Now, specifically here for the western part of Forsyth County and the town of Louisville, we had some expansion of service for our routes that's coming out of Mount Airy, which is that blue route that you see. We have some expansion of service that was coming from Kernersville into Winston-Salem, and then also a new route that we established on the western Forsyth that's feeding in from Louisville and Clemens into Winston-Salem into the downtown area as part of that mitigation for mobility options. These are some of the things that we have dealt with regards to Route 28, as we call it. We put into a numbering system. But some of those items that we've dealt with regards to not only a new service, but also actually increasing or going into a leasing of a park and ride facility. We have some incentive programs that we have worked through with Federal Highways and NCDOT as far as this mitigation project and program that we're dealing with on the Business 40 closure. And a lot of that has also been dealing with, here's some route scheduling activities. A lot of that has also been dealing with putting in and introducing new ideas as far as mobility. Something that we're very proud of that's also going to be something new for the Triad as well as the state of North Carolina is how we deal with our management of fares and collections, meaning that we are getting into the new age of technology. This is something new. This is something new for the transit industry per se in North Carolina. Certainly not new when it comes to things like Apple Pay and how you deal with your accounts and Amazon, things of that nature. But when you deal with public services and you deal with some things dealing with smartphones and smart cards, we were very fortunate to be able to introduce this new technology as part of the Business 40 closure. And this is something that we're going to be going with our system here in the next few months. And this is also something for our region, dealing with some of our partner agencies that we work with in the city of Winston-Salem, city of Greensboro, High Point, as well as in Burlington-Graham. Some other items that that we have and that we've had here in this region, and we hope that we'll be able to promote more, especially in the town of Louisville, because this is something that very well matches up with some of your workforce. And I'll show you what that means on a few more slides. We have a van pool program. We have the largest van pool program in the state of North Carolina. It's actually been in operation here in the Triad dating back to the mid-'80s. This is a program that PART took on in 2000. It was our first regional program that we took on at PART. We presently have 56 van pool groups, and these van pool groups, what they generally do is they contribute collectively on the cost of those services. PART manages the vans. We have the asset ownership of the vans. We take care of the insurance, the gas, things of that nature, and it's a cost share. And we promote that with a lot of our businesses. Like I said, we have 56 van pool groups, and we have some of our employers in this region that actually utilize that as a subsidy program as part of their incentives for employees. One specific, I will say, one example is Herbalife, that is in the old facility where Dell used to be. They actually have a lot of employees that they transferred from California. Some of them are living in Research Triangle Park. They take care of that expense for their employees, and some other employers do that because they also know that it's very hard to retain quality employees. And so those are some things that we try to help and promote. But as far as the assets and the inventory and managing that program, that's a very exciting program. And again, this is also something we use to promote with regards to Business 40 and the closure, and also some of the cost-saving incentives that we were able to work with Federal Highways and NCDOT on for them to participate financially with more folks utilizing alternative modes of transportation. And again, getting out of the single occupancy vehicle to try to relieve the congestion that we're experiencing and that we see. Not as bad as what was anticipated, but we certainly see that congestion in the morning and the evening hours when folks are traveling through the Triad. One other item that we have that we were certainly building a lot more with is directly working with our employers in this region. What we call is a partnership program, but essentially that is working with our various employers to give them an education or a little bit more information about what are options with mobility, existing options in our Triad region, whether it's our service or our local service, whether it's our carpool matching that we have, that we work with NCDOT, that's actually a statewide program, whether it's some things that are dealing with some of our federal programs, specifically on our some of our best workplaces for commuters or our commuter tax benefits, and how does that tie in with employers, and how can employers utilize that with regards to their workforce. These things work in some areas, and some other areas there may be certain bits and pieces that are beneficial, but just knowing that information, that's a lot of what we have with our partnership program, so folks have a better understanding that there are options. Some things need to be tailored, some things need to be created, But working together, that's really that's our purpose, and what we do with our partnership program is to give that education out there and try to work with various groups so they have a better understanding of what their choices of mobility are. For Business 40, and for where we're at now, we started our service at the end of October. We have reached out and done a great deal with regards to marketing, reaching out to businesses in what we consider, or what's been classified, if you will, as our traffic relief zone. So if you want to say what's that area around Winston-Salem Business 40 that's really impacted. So we have 180 businesses that we've personally worked with, touched with. We have 22 major employers in our region that have signed up with our X-Pass program, which is basically our bus pass program with some incentives for folks. Great deal of those folks are coming from all over the region, and we do have a great deal of travel within our region from all different jurisdictions. Many of the folks that work here, or many of the folks that live here, work in other places, and I'll show you some slides on that in just a few minutes. We've seen a good increase comparatively, not only to our existing ridership, but also across the country with the 3 routes that we had some expansion. Since we started at the end of October, we've seen a 37% increase in ridership, so that's very positive. We're also dealing with some pretty significant reduction of single occupancy vehicle travel, and that's getting right back to the key of how can we reduce congestion. What are some of the options that we can do, and are there some cost-saving benefits for folks to actually utilize different modes, whether it's the bus or whether it's van pooling or carpooling, or just looking at teleworking, things of that nature. And again, a lot of our messaging and a lot of the things that we deal with in our agency and our program is mobility and transportation, and it affects us every day. Everything that we do, one way or another, whether it's walking or biking or riding the car or whatever, we have to get around. And how is that going to be utilized, and how can we look at different ways to where that actually is efficient, or we're saving some time, we're saving some money. And so that's a lot of the messaging that we put out with many of our programs. In Louisville, some things that we have looked at, some things that we know and I wanted to share, and you may already know this because you certainly deal with growth. You certainly deal with a lot of things as far as how you're going to manage your growth here in your town, keeping up with your interest of maintaining a smaller town charm, which is working very well, but I know that's going to be a challenge. And what do you have? Just from a transportation standpoint, there are a lot of folks that live here, but there's a lot of folks that are working outside of Louisville. I understand. There are some folks that are coming out from your town and coming into this area. That's certainly understandable too. We have, just from some information and this data that we gather, let me say this data is coming off of census, this data is coming off of some journey to work characteristics that are out there that are managed by different folks. And so we just pull this data from some other data sources that are out there. We have some large employers, where a lot of your residents go to, and I won't read through the list, but you can see whether it's the City of Winston-Salem or Baptist Hospital. That's a big draw. That's understandable because those are big draws from all over our region. Commuting into Louisville, as you can see, we're roughly, and I can't read the percentage. I think it's 19% that we have coming into Louisville, but then on the bottom piece there, you have 76% of your residents that are commuting out of Louisville. That's nothing historically shocking. If you want to compare that with Clemens, or if you want to compare that to High Point or Greensboro, we have in our region a great deal of cross-jurisdictional commuting. Now again, is everything going to be on the car? Is everything the automobile? Are there options, and how do we address that for folks to actually see that it's not only a cost savings, but it's also a time saving, and it's not a bad thing. Now, when we look at some of these things with commuting flows and opportunities, we see this as a great deal of huge opportunity. Now, a lot of that also comes back to education. Education for folks to actually understand, because it's not easily understood. It's not something that always works for everybody, but if there are some things that we can do collectively, working with the town, working with our various jurisdictions, it may be more of those instances where people say, oh, I get it, I understand. Carpooling can work on certain days, van pooling can work on certain days, maybe I'll take the bus on certain days. How does that actually affect that individual? And those are some things that just come into culture and change. But when we sit back and think about all the things you deal with, when you look at all the things that we all deal with in North Carolina, we know that our population is not going to go away. We also know that our elderly population is living longer. We know that we have health care that's supporting our growth. We also know that we have younger generations that have completely different mindsets on how they deal with life in general. And how do we address those things? And how are we going to deal with those things? I don't have the answers. I really don't. but we know that mobility is going to be a part of that. And what can we do to actually deal with some of those changes that are coming and some of those things that we know are going to be affecting our smaller jurisdictions as well as larger towns with regards to mobility? So when we look at these things and we have more of those analysis and more of those datas and more of those conversations, we also look at, well, how does this affect the individual family? Well, these are huge numbers. This is the largest thing that we talk about when it comes to what are those impacts where people have and where they live and where they work. But housing and transportation in our region, and specifically here in the town of Louisville, it is a very large number. And you may not think about it, but when you add it up and you talk about your housing and your transportation costs, and you add those two numbers together, we're in the 70% range. That is a big number. And is that for everybody? No. These are averages. These are national data, things of that nature. But if you sit back and think about what you have for your mortgage, you think about what you have for your insurance on your house, you think about your car and all those types of things, these are real expenses. Now, I'm not saying that we have the solution, that everybody's just going to start walking and getting around. It really just addresses, this is a need of something that needs to be addressed, and it's not just one individual agency. It's really more just understanding what are those options, if there are some options, and are there some benefits? Because the cost saving and the economic development with those cost savings are really what affect all of our economies. And that's, again, some of the messaging that we're trying to put out with folks, just to understand that there are options, and if you don't know what those options are, who can you contact, who can you communicate with, and what are the things that we can actually create for folks to have a better understanding of how they get around and how they actually travel. Now, you have your comprehensive plan, you have a lot of growth, you have some things that you're dealing with across the street, you have a lot of sidewalk activities. Those are all fantastic. Those are all fitting into exactly what we're talking about in terms of how do people live, where do people live, how do they make decisions with regards to their growth management, how do they make decisions on how they deal with their mobility, whether it's personal or whether it's business or whether it's pleasure, how do they deal with their transportation demand. And some of the tools and some of the techniques that I'm going to share with you are some of that information of what we'd like to share more with our member agencies, with our partner agencies, with all of our communities, that there's more than just one single decision on how we deal with mobility. Why is this important? I touched on it a little bit earlier, but it's very much important. It's important on how we deal with our elderly population, how we deal with those individuals that need to have medical transportation, that don't have opportunities to drive or can no longer drive. How do we deal with attracting the workforce? These are some staggering numbers, but when you go back and think about it, yes, we have a lot that's changing in our society. We have a lot that's coming up with our different generations. Again, I have a couple that are in that millennial generation myself. I cannot say that I understand the things that go through their mind because it just doesn't make sense. But even when I have more of those conversations with other ages of that generation, they're all really very similar in the same thing. They live off their technology. They deal with some things, even with mobility. I've personally myself, I remember when I was turning 16 and I was at DMV getting my driver's license. I have my youngest son that he went 1.5 years before he even thought about getting a driver's license. He just didn't want it. Not all of them are the same way. Not all people are the same way. But it's just a different mindset. And that younger generation, whether it's the millennials or the X generation, whichever one it is, it's just different because they have a different mindset and a different thought process. And how do we attract that workforce? How does the economic development of your community attract that workforce? How do we deal with those things with regards to what is this younger generation and what's that workforce going to do? Because it's not just always driving the car. There are many things that go into the decision, and how are we dealing with that growth management? How are we dealing not only here in Louisville, but how are they dealing with in Clemens or Winston-Salem? Everything in North Carolina is really going to be on an onslaught, because if you look at all the demographics and all the data centers, everybody is saying that North Carolina is not going to stop growing. Everybody is saying that in the year 2030, year 2035, we're going to be exceeding the population in the state of Georgia and elsewhere. So it's not going to stop, because North Carolina is a beautiful place to live. I mean, we have the mountains, we have the coast, we have a lot of opportunities with regards to development, whether it's in Charlotte, whether it's in the Triangle or the Triad. And how do we deal with those things to where congestion, and I was speaking with your clerk earlier, I grew up in Georgia. I'm not sure how many folks go to Georgia, but it's not a place that I really go to unless I want to go see my mother. It's just a dreadful place. It really is, if you want to talk about moving around and getting around in Georgia as you travel. That's my personal opinion. I'll leave it up to everybody else to have their own. But I've lived it, I've experienced it, and I hope that North Carolina does not get to that same place to they're really being reactive in trying to deal with congestion like we're already starting to see. And how do we basically try to be a little bit more proactive? Those are some thought processes, because again, we're not just talking about the bus, we're not just talking about PART. We're talking about these things where you deal with your integrated corridor management, where you're dealing with some things where you have some areas of transit-oriented development, some of the things that you're dealing with that you already had on your conversations, and with your comprehensive plans, and how we deal with walkable communities and bikeable communities, as well as just giving the education that there are options out there for mobility, and does that actually improve some livelihood that you have, not only from your own individual savings that could be affected, but also how your community grows. So with that information, where are we at with our next steps in our region? We'd like to talk more about these investments. We'd like to talk more about what these options are. We'd like to be able to share more of this information and answer any of those questions. So not to belabor the point, which I've kept hitting more and more, is that there's a lot more options. But I do want to say thank you for the time. I certainly want to say I've got some information as far as our agency and some of the things that we deal with all of our jurisdictions. And please don't hesitate at any time if you have any information that we can share, or any of your businesses that are in your community, or your citizens that have an interest to know more about what these mobility options are. So Mayor, I'll be more than happy to answer any questions. But
Thank
again,
you, Scott.
I appreciate that.
Any questions for Scott? Scott, you've been with PART now 5 years, 6 years?
19, yes, sir.
Well, close, right? Just seems like only yesterday.
Yes, it does.
Very good. You're doing a great job. I know we have an opportunity to see each other at the Transportation Advisory Committee meetings, and your reports are always well received, and the great things you're doing at PART and making mass transit, rapid transit available for residents of certainly the tribe at Louisville as well. Thank you for all you're doing.
Thank you.
Come
Appreciate
visit
your
us
time.
again.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, this will be the first of two opportunities tonight for individuals who wish to address the council. If you would like to make any comments, please come forward now. State your name and address. Anyone wish to address the council at this point? Very good. This evening, we have no appointments, we have no public hearings, we have no annexation requests. By the way, we had several annexation requests over the last couple of months, and we're always glad when residents ask to be part of our wonderful community, and we welcome them on a regular basis. We have no site plan amendments, unfinished business, and we're to new business. And Stacy, I think George, first off, has a contract for us to approve on paving, correct?
Thank you. Resolution 2019044, awarding a paving contract to Yakin Valley Paving. This is in the amount of $189,835.88. And this will be taking in paving from Louisville, Vienna to Whitfield Road. Any questions?
I had the opportunity to ride down through there after our briefing when you told us about that, and the road definitely needs some attention. And but how long do you know exactly from point to point is this? That's a long stretch of road.
It is. Do you have the?
I'm just curious.
Not sure if I can get that up. Oh, yeah, I sure can. Hold on. Oop, wrong one. Might. Oh, she's got it.
It's really not that important to hold things up.
I also had a list of all the streets in there.
It doesn't have the total distance, but it has the square yardage. It's 11,716 square yards from Louisville, Vienna to Whitfield.
That's fine. I just was curious about the linear feet. So,
George, the last time we did work on this road was when?
2003.
2003. So
We got about 15, 16 years out of it, so it's actually exceeded. Usually you get about anywhere from 10 to 12 years out of the asphalt.
And one thing about this particular road is that unfortunately you have so much cut-through traffic from Wellesley Place that shouldn't be cutting through Shallow Ford Lakes to start with. That increases the volume that is on that particular stretch of road there, so, and it gets pitted out pretty badly.
Any questions for George?
I'll make a motion to approve contract.
Second.
Mr. Franklin makes a motion, Mr. Smith makes the second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, that's unanimous. We're going to set a public hearing on our budget.
We have Resolution 2019, 0 through 7, setting a public hearing to receive comments on the 2019-2020 budget for Thursday, June 13th, 2019, at 7:30 PM at the Louisville Town Hall.
Very good. Ladies and gentlemen, your council has been working diligently over the last month and to review our budget for the 2019-20 fiscal year. We hope we've done a really good job. I think we have. We don't have a lot of frills in there. We have a lot of services for our residents, and I hope if you have not, you will go online and take a look at it, review your budget, because it's $4.5 million, give or take a few hundred thousand, 4.2, 4.3.
I can't remember exactly.
Pam keeps nodding, so it's someplace between $4.2 and $4.5 million. But it's your money, so please be aware of how we're spending it, and I hope we're good stewards of it. Council members, with that, we'll have a motion to set the public hearing.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Mr. Smith makes the motion, Ms. Mock makes the second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, that's unanimous. Stacy, you've got 4 items.
Yes.
Just roll right through them.
Starting with the first one, Resolution 2019-042. This is to set a public hearing for a small 5-foot strip of land. This was annexed into the town last month. It's adjacent to newly property that was taken in at the lake at Lasara. This 5-foot makes it a contiguous annexation, but that property, even though it's just 5 foot, it is currently unzoned and needs to be zoned land. So it would be taking it from Forsyth County zoning jurisdiction to the Louisville RS40 zoning jurisdiction. So the resolution is to set that public hearing for Thursday, June 13th at 7:30 PM.
Any questions for Stacy? Entertain a motion.
Make a motion.
Second. We'll go
Ms.
ahead.
Mock makes a motion, Ms. Gallman makes a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, that's unanimous.
Okay, moving on, Resolution 2019-040. This is to set a public hearing for zoning case L088. The rezoning request is by Lasar Partners for the other side of the lake at Lasar, adding some additional lots. This would be to rezone property from RS40 of Forsyth County jurisdiction to RS40S to Louisville zoning jurisdiction. Public hearing would be Thursday, June 13th at 7:30 PM, and this would be contingent on a later annexation.
Any questions for Stacy? Entertain a motion.
Make a motion.
Second.
Ms. Mock makes the motion, Mr. Smith makes the second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, that's unanimous.
Okay, speaking about that same property, Resolution 2019-041, this is to set an evidentiary public hearing. The request is for a special use permit for a planned residential development for that same development that is requesting the rezoning as well. The public hearing would be Thursday, June 13th at 7:30 PM.
Questions for our planner?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Mr. Franklin makes a motion, Ms. Gallman makes a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, that's unanimous.
And the last one, Resolution 2019-038. Again, this is the same property, the lake at Lasara, Phase 2, Section 6. This is a public hearing to annex the property into the town of Louisville. The public hearing would be set for Thursday, June 13th at 7:30 PM.
Any questions for the planner? Entertain a motion.
Motion approved.
Second.
Mr. Green makes the motion, Ms. Mock makes the second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, that's unanimous. Thank you, Stacy. Hank?
Okay, moving to events and town closings for Shallowford Square and Town Hall. On May 11th, Saturday, that's this Saturday, weather permitting, we have a concert in the park. It's Trial by Fire. They're a Journey tribute band. Moving forward to the 17th, Friday, we're going to try to show the movie night Incredibles 2. I think this is maybe second or third time around for it.
It's going to rain.
Yeah, it's going to rain again.
What night, what Friday night was it?
That's 17th, sir.
Okay.
Yep.
I don't want to bother you that day.
And then the last thing I'll mention this evening is that on Monday, the 27th, Town Hall offices will be closed in observance for Memorial Day, and we will also end up having the Military Appreciation Concert Band of Oz.
That's terrific. Any questions for Hank on upcoming events?
Mayor, I know it's not one of our events, but let's be sure to let folks know that on Memorial Day, the American Legion and so forth has great festivities, if you will, in observance. That morning, I think it's, what, starts at 11?
I think it's 11 o'clock,
I
isn't
think
it?
it is 11. I'm not real sure about that.
Very good. If you haven't been to one of our memorial services that's put on by the American Legion, it's a real special day, particularly when the flags are flying and the wind is blowing and the sky is blue. It's a quite moving ceremony. So if you haven't been there, we hope to see you there. Hank, your manager's report.
Yes, I will mention that we've had a call for projects for the MPO that has come up. Some work that the mayor has done working with Kelly Garvin of the MPO. We have determined that roundabouts are an eligible highway transit project. So what we've done in the past is we have developed cost opinions on 2 roundabouts, one at Louisville, Vienna, and Robin Hood, the other at Louisville, Vienna, and Yadkinville Highway. So what we intend to do with council approval, and they're being okay with it, is to go ahead and submit the Yadkinville Highway project with the roundabout there for a highway project for the MPO for call for projects. The second we'll end up doing is a bike ped project. This will be a sidewalk out Shallowford Road out to the vicinity of Shallowford Reserve. This is a project that council has supported in the past and ended up having to give it up for some projects on Louisville Clemens Road. The project on Shallowford Road for the sidewalk, if approved, has to be with an amount not to exceed $500,000. I think we can get a project put together for that for submission, and there will be a 20% match on that one. I will be coming to you next month for a letter of support for both of these projects that will then be forwarded to the MPO as well. So that's it. Does anyone have any questions about these 2 projects?
I think the Louisville, Vienna and the Yadkinville, didn't we have that on the MPOs at one time and it wasn't selected or?
We did. We had both of those roundabouts submitted. We were asked to choose one or the other.
Right.
Given the school project, we chose the Robin Hood Road.
Good, okay.
Hank, I thought we had to have these to the MPO by the 17th.
Yes, next week.
Okay, so we probably then need some type of acknowledgement by council that those 2 projects are acceptable to you all to go ahead and submit.
Yes, that would help, sir.
Okay. Any questions about those projects? Again, it's a roundabout at Louisville, Vienna and Yadkinville Road, and it's a sidewalk extension going out to roughly Shallowford Reserve, out Shallowford Road.
Depending on how that goes, that'll end up being approximately 3,200 feet.
I guess my only question would be that if we make this request or whatever, that we're not trumping something else that's already like Louisville Clemens right here.
We're okay. These would be for the next prioritization,
Big
60.
long cycle or whatever, okay.
So it's the next cycle. Now, we did get confirmation. We got confirmation at one of our briefings that the widening of Louisville Clemens Road was going to be in the first 5 years of this next plan. We then learned that it wasn't. We then learned that it was. We then learned that it wasn't, and today we got confirmation that we think it's going to be. So keep our fingers crossed. We hope.
This is from DOT?
And this is from DOT now, so keep our fingers crossed. All subject to the state board approving things.
Yeah, the latest information came from Kelly Garvin of the MPO. What has been done is that the project, anything with action starting in year 6, our project on Louisville Clemens Road, and it's not ours, it's a DOT project, has right-of-way beginning in year 6. So that is a recommendation of the DOT, subject to the approval of the State Transportation Board. I believe that's probably going to be a done deal for that. If that happens, then a lot of the projects that we've done in the past on Louisville Clemens Road will be moot.
Yep, exactly. And we do have funding for a segment, and we'll have to talk about that probably at a future date, what we want to try to do with that money, and or if we want to just turn it back in and see if we can apply it to another project. Generally speaking, they don't let you transfer money from a project approved to another project, but we'll see if we can do some horse trading with them. Any questions for Hank on that? So I'll just, I guess we probably should do a motion on that to submit those projects.
Yes, thank you.
I say motion to approve Hank's recommendation, move this forward.
Second.
Mr. Smith makes a motion, Ms. Mock makes the second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. And don't get too enthused about it, because it could be 5, 6, 7, 8 years before they come to fruition, if they come to fruition. So don't hold your breaths.
The only thing that moves slower than roads is sewer. That's glacial.
Very good. Hank, do you have anything else for us?
Waits it.
Okay, very good. Ladies and gentlemen, we're at the second point of our meeting, where if you have been moved by what you've heard or have a question that you'd like to come up and address council, please do so at this time. Anybody? Very good. Okay, so we're out of that public hearing, or public forum. Let's see. Council members, any comments before we're out of here? Very good. Well, we have Shaylee Powell, or Power. Palmer.
He's really bad with names. Excuse him.
It's a challenge, you know.
On his meds, don't worry.
I get up in the morning and my wife puts a name tag on me and says, "This is who you are," so I can wander through the day. Shaylee, what do you think? This is time for your oral quiz. You ready? You've been taking notes feverishly? You think you can do this? Are you ready? Well, the only thing you really have to do is to get one of us to sign your form. And I see the beads of sweat breaking out on your forehead, and with great relief now, the knowing you have to. But thank you for coming. We always appreciate and enjoy having students from Reagan West and Forsyth Country Day coming for our meetings. So thank you for being here tonight. Hope you learned something. Hope it was a little bit educational anyway. Council members, so no other comments or business to come before the council this evening, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Ms. Locke makes the motion, Mr. Smith makes the second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? That's unanimous. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching on TV6. Thank you for watching on LouisvilleNC.net. And unfortunately, we are having problems with Facebook. No surprise, but we are. So those of you who are on Facebook, I've tried to send you a couple of notes saying, please go to TV6 or our website. We'll try to get it working next month. But thank you for being with us. With that, we're adjourned.